Hey guys, Dom Kane here for Sonic Academy with another tech tip. This time I am looking at reverb on bass lines, which is usually a big no. You want your bass lines in most tracks, the vast majority of the time, you want your bass line to be mono, and reverb is a stereo byproduct of having two walls and it's bouncing off the walls, or two or more walls. So it kind of sounds like a contradictory thing to do with the bass line, because as a general rule of thumb you want your bass line to be mono, because you may get phasing issues in nightclubs, and obviously the old school rule was things like TV, mobile phones, whatever, clubs were generally mono systems, so you didn't want your bass line to go horribly wrong there. However, this is a little trick that I do to sort of add a little bit of life, not so much into the low end of the bass line, but more for the high end of the bass line, if there is such a thing, more for the saturation points. So let's have a look and see what I've got at the moment. Okay, so as you can see, there's a couple of instances of some drums, some claps, some bass line. There's a Moog, which is another bass line here, and I've got the MIDI of that bass line down here. Some Atmos in the background, and that's basically it. Very, very simple. If I just go before the drop and hit play, you'll hear what it sounds like. So that's the basic sort of groove of the track. We've got two bass lines playing together here. We've got the Moog here, which sounds like this. And then we've got an instance of Alchemy that sounds like this. And what I want to do is just breathe a bit of life into those two. So starting with this Alchemy, let's have a look. What I want to do is grab some reverb and stick it on the channel here. And I'll solo that as well. Now, by default, you really don't want reverb on the low end. Like I explained at the beginning of the video, it generally can become a bit of a nightmare. So if I go to 100% wet here, and you can hear, because of this low cut, high cut input processing, there is definitely reverb on the low end. So I'm going to swap them round so that we've got a low cut, and I'm going to drag that cutoff point up until I'm satisfied. Yeah, there we go. So it's around 4K hit on this instance. And I'm just basically catching the upper frequencies here. And then I'm going to stick the diffuse up 100%. And you know what? I'm going to leave the decay there, actually. I don't need to do too much to that. I am going to increase the stereo field a little bit as well. You know what, 120% is as far as it goes, and to be honest, that's probably about right. So really all I've done, I'm being as subtle as I possibly can be here. And then once I'm happy with that signal, which I am happy, I'm going to get rid of this cut off for the diffusion as well. Yeah, that just lets it rattle up top a little bit more. And that is about it. So once I'm happy with that, I'm going to bring the dry wet down to 50%. Knowing that the reverb now is only affecting the upper frequencies, which is the, you know, the harmonics of this bass line, basically. So if I play it from there and just switch this on and off, you can hear that's having a drastic difference, and what it's doing is just sort of breathing a bit of life into that bass line, where I mean, certainly now when we switch it off, to me that just sounds really dry compared to, I might even shorten the decay time a little bit to sit in the groove a bit better. And that's good enough for me. And then if I go over to this Moog, so this is going to be a little bit different now, because there were plenty of harmonics in this. If you listen to this Moog, you can, in fact, you can see down here, look, I've got an EQ8 and a low pass filter. So, you know, there's going to be very few harmonics in this. Yeah, barely anything. Now, if we save us a job, we'll just copy and paste this over here. So we use the exact same reverb with the exact same settings for now. And then we go to 100% wet so we can hear what's actually being affected. And you can hear there's barely anything in there. And in fact, we want to raise this even higher. And now it's almost, well, it's almost unaffected, to be honest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab in a multi-band dynamics and drop it just before the reverb. So this is basically, for anyone that isn't au fait with Ableton, this is basically an upwards compressor. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the high frequencies here, and I'm going to drag the threshold up. And let's do the same for the mids a bit as well and see what that does. No, that doesn't do it because I've just dragged this too high. So if I compare that on and off, yeah, you can really hear what that's doing. And we can push this as far as we want because we're dealing with, I mean, signals that barely exist. So I'm gonna push up the, well, actually input and output, and let's see what happens. There we go. And now if I bring the dry wet levels down. I mean, that's just made it 100 times better. If I group these together now, just so that I've got the on off button to listen to it. I mean, that's a mammoth difference. In fact, I've probably gone way too far just for this example's sake, though. That seems to work pretty well. So let's have a listen to the whole thing as it should be. Yeah, that's way too loud. We'll bring this down. And as far as effects go on bass lines, I'm pretty happy with that. It's just a case of toning it down now. Obviously, I've gone to pretty extreme levels here, as you can see. You know, I've kept things at 50% wet, and I've boosted this by, well, 16 dB, and I don't even know how much in upwards compression, a silly amount. But you get the idea. And then same again with this one that's already got harmonics. So the reason I wanted to show you both of these is because this one has plenty of harmonics and plenty of upper frequencies in there. So to catch that with a reverb, very easy. Whereas this one with the Moog was already filtered out. So what we're doing then is we're building our own harmonics in there just by completely saturating and clipping the inputs and outputs. And that's how to add a bit of life into your bass lines. So as you can see, it's a pretty simple trick to do with bass lines. It's one of those things that it's not going to work every time in every track, but certainly if you find that you've got some fairly substantial bass lines, usually if you're doing something like, say, a sine wave, much like that Moog one, I think is a good example where it's quite a smooth bass line. It's in mono, as bass lines should be in general. And there aren't really any harmonics to have in there to add to reverb, so that it can kind of be quite lifeless at times. That's really the instance where you then just want to add in, and you can do it through distortion units, through saturation, through various different amp simulations, but for me, upwards compression and just go bananas on the upper frequencies, and then just add some reverb to those upper frequencies while not impacting the lower frequencies, and it just adds a bit of breath, a breath of fresh air to the bass line of a track. Hope you like. I'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content, and if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.